What's going on, everybody? I am back to break down this 13-game MLB DFS slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. Excited to get into it. Going to be giving you guys the top plays to get you winning some money tonight. As always, get you in that green cash line. If you enjoy this content, would be greatly appreciated if you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. The like goal for this video will be 200 likes if you enjoy, guys, too. I mean, these DraftKings FanDuel videos haven't been getting quite as much attention as some of my other ones, so, just give me some feedback. Leave a comment down below saying you appreciate these, and hit that like button. It does really help me out to, keep producing these. Regardless, I'm going to be here all season helping you out, but I would like to get these out daily, and the support certainly encouraged me to do so. But thank you to all that support as is. And if you haven't signed up for the sponsor of the program, go ahead and check them out, Prize Picks. Use that promo code KJK DFS to receive an instant match deposit up to $100. And I'll be giving out picks as well on that. It's a player props website and app where you can win money off of picking the over and under on things like player strikeouts, first inning runs allowed, pitching out, pitcher fantasy score, hitter fantasy score, hit walks, etc. Check that out. And if you are getting very serious, I do offer a premium content package that's linked below in the description. You get access to all of my tools, my core plays, my cheat sheet, my top stacks, all that fun stuff. Hot hitters, StatCast data, splits leaderboard, bullpen data. If you're getting serious, would highly recommend you check it out. And without further ado, let's get into it. Don't forget to stay tuned to the end of the video for my home run call of the day, the fan favorite segment on the channel as well, the guy I'm picking to go deep. And let's talk about pitchers first. As always, sort my sheet by K rate. It's fantasy sports. We get points for strikeouts. Figure out the top guys on the slate we want to play from the arms perspective, and then we'll break down bats second half. And obviously, this is a massive slate, so we're going to try to get through this, as quickly as possible. Maybe not quite touch on every pitcher. Maybe not quite as much details as some of the other videos, but we got a lot to pick from, man. So the top guy on the slate is going to be Justin Verlander. He comes in with a 35.2% K rate overall, a 15.9% swinging strike rate, 32.3% K rate to righties, and a 37.8% K rate to lefties. So obviously, very dominant across the board. The only problem he has tonight is he has to take on the Toronto Blue Jays, which is a less than ideal matchup, obviously. They're a really good lineup up and down. They really don't strike out that much. But they still do only have a 3.71 implied total against Verlander. I just think there's some other guys on the slate that we're going to be talking about that are probably in easier matchups. That might be a little bit easier to target. When you look at Toronto Blue Jays lineup up and down, they don't have the biggest amount of strikeouts in their bats. In the core of the lineup, Zach Collins, Matt Chapman are really the ones that have the majority of the strikeout rate throughout this lineup, but other than that, they just really don't strike out. They're a really solid lineup, so Verlander's still going to be a phenomenal option. He can mow down any sort of lineup. He's matchup proof. He is Justin Verlander. He's awesome, but as far as his pitch count's concerned as well, capped out at 80 the first time and then 87 the second game, so I do think we're going to start to see that ramp up here as well, and I mean, he's just had a lot better matchups his first two times out. The Angels have been striking out. The Seattle Mariners have been striking out a lot. 7 and 8 Ks respectively in those two games, but you got to factor in the matchup's not quite as good in this one, so not quite as interested in him. I think Michael Kopech could be a fantastic option tonight with a 34.8% K rate overall, 27% hard contact rate, really doesn't give up a lot of hard contact, a 27.6% K rate to righties, and a 44.8% K rate to lefties. Actually, really, really dominant against those left-handed bats. And when you're breaking down his matchup against the Minnesota Twins, obviously I think this is a much better matchup than the Toronto Blue Jays that we just discussed. They only do have a 3.75 implied run total. And as far as the strikeout rate throughout this lineup in the heart of the order in the Minnesota Twins lineup, there's a lot of strikeouts at the bottom of the order. The top of the order, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, they're mediocre, 20% K rate or so right through the 5-hole. And then once you get down to Sanchez, Larnach, Sano, and Nick Gordon, there's some strikeouts that we can really take advantage of in the bottom of the order, but it does look like there's 18-mile-an-hour winds blowing in, and it's in Minnesota as well, which is a pretty good pitching environment. Put up the diagram for Minnesota here. You can see a lot of red going on there as far as the hitting environment, so it never does hurt our feelings to be targeting pitchers here. And lastly, obviously, with it being early in the season, we do have to check the pitch count as far as what Kopech's been able to get up to so far in the season. 69 and 75 pitches, so not quite as long of a leash as some of these other guys, but I think at the 75 mark, we could see him climb up more into the 80 range tonight. And the strikeout stuff's really there, and the price tag isn't quite as expensive as like a Verlander that we just discussed. So a nice little discount. Obviously, we prefer guys that are really stretched out into the 90s if we can all get it. Looking at Freddie Peralta taking on the Philadelphia Phillies, he's been a guy that has had some rough outings to start the season. He gave up 6 earned run last time against St. Louis, 3 earned runs the time before, 4 strikeouts, 6 strikeouts. So maybe people are scared to go back to him, and the ownership isn't quite as high. But he does get to take on a Philadelphia Phillies squad tonight that, while their bats do have a lot of power, maybe this is a situation where the power can kind of go against them and he can get some strikeouts. It's going to be power on power. Freddie Peralta is a guy that does throw very hard. And maybe he can rack up the strikeouts and get him at lower ownership than we typically do because people are scared to go back to him. This Philadelphia Phillies squad, that for the majority of their lineup has a 20+% K rate up and down the order. They do only have a 4.15 implied total. And like I said, the guy's really been struggling, so maybe it's an opportunity where we can capitalize on some ownership. Trevor Rogers taking on Atlanta, a high-powered offense that does have some strikeouts in their bats as well, so I would say he's a high-risk, high-reward option. Against the Atlanta Braves, looking at the biggest lines, they have a 4.31 implied total. Rogers has always been a guy we've been concerned about his pitch count the last couple of years as far as, Miami actually rolling him out there for a lot of pitches. 74 and 63 pitches the last 2 times out. So once again, a pitch count issue. He did go up 7 on a run last time, though, so obviously they're going to pull him a little bit sooner than you might see in some other matchups. Zach Allen taking on the New York Mets. They've been a really good lineup up and down, so it's a little bit scary to be targeting them. We have Glenn Otto taking on Oakland. He has a 25.2% K rate overall with a 28.6% K rate to righties. Does get quite a bit of strikeouts against righties, and Oakland has been one of the easiest matchups to target so far in the season. As far as, his overall pitch count and stuff, that's obviously a whole another question, but he is really cheap. And it seems like targeting the Oakland Athletics and the Baltimore Orioles might be the way to go here. Starting Otto began the years in the minors, struck out 9 in 7 scoreless frames in his first 2 starts. So we'll see how much he's actually stretched out, but he is a really cheap option. And if you're wanting to load up on bats, I feel like just targeting the Oakland Athletics is going to be a viable option all year long. We have Tariq Skubal taking on Colorado. As far as Colorado is concerned, anytime they're outside of Coors Field, I think it's interesting because obviously they're not going to be quite as threatening, in a different ballpark. And Colorado is traditionally a team that we just like to target when they're on the road. They don't really have a lot of strikeouts in their bats against left-handed pitching, though, is my only concern. So once again, a matchup that's less than ideal. Julio Urias, same thing as the San Diego Padres, man. That's just not the best matchup. He is a talented pitcher overall if you want to go there. Bailey Ober against the Chicago White Sox, same thing. They just really have a lot of power throughout their lineup. Kluber doesn't get the best matchup against Boston. Corbin doesn't get the best matchup against the San Francisco Giants. We're looking up and down this list. I would say Ranger Suarez gets a pretty good matchup taking on Milwaukee. Jamison Tyon taking on Cleveland. Could be somewhere you're looking to go. David Peterson taking on Arizona is a guy that I'm always looking to target because I'm very biased. But the guy's won me a lot of money, and I always like going to David Peterson. Just fair warning, it's a kind of a little bit of a bias thing with me when it comes to Peterson, but I do think he has some pretty good underlying talent. I do think the Diamondbacks aren't really the strongest lineup up and down. And we're looking at their K rate overall against left-handed pitching. They really don't strike out, though. So, some really low strikeout rates up and down the order. We are dealing with some small sample sizes, but a lot of these guys just don't strike out, so it's a little bit scary to be going there. So it's a slate where we're going to be targeting a lot of talent on talent, it feels like. Bruce Zimmerman taking on the LA Angels is another guy. His numbers are not good, but he gets to take on the LA Angels, and they're just a squad that I've been targeting early and often. The strikeouts are really high in this lineup, so I just feel confident going against them. And while Zimmerman doesn't have the most talent in the world, once again, there's a lot of strikeouts, and the same can be said for Baltimore, taking on Detmers, when you look at his stuff, as far as his K rate ability and all that stuff, he's all the way down here at like a 20% K rate, but once again, the matchup's really good, so maybe taking some risks on these guys that are not exactly the most talented arms, but get good matchups, it could be a viable option tonight. Just go cheap and load up on the bats, because a lot of the guys you're paying up for, they're in tough matchups. We talked about Verlander, we talked about Trevor Rogers, Michael Kopech. The Twins are a little bit easy from a K rate in the bottom of the order, but still, they have a lot of power, a lot of talent up and down. I do feel really confident with the 18-mile-an-hour winds blowing in, though, in Minnesota. That always makes me feel a little bit better targeting pitchers, obviously. And then Kluber against the Red Sox, Walker against Tampa. It's just a lot of the most talented pitchers are in kind of tough matchups. I think Jamison Tyon could be a really good option for that reason. He gets to take on the Guardians. They only have 3.55 implied run total. He's a 194 favorite, expected to get some run support. And he is pretty stretched out. So, I'll kind of round things out by saying maybe he's somewhere you're really looking to go here tonight. Did only pitch 70 pitches a game, though. Maybe we see him get up into the 80s finally, hopefully, in this game. But it's just the matchup. He's a heavy favorite. You get a little bit of a discount. He might be somewhere you're looking to go. So overall, it's going to be a lot of power on power, a lot of tough matchups with the arms, and you're just going to have to decide, throughout the day. Obviously, my core plays and everything for my premium content members, I'll have this all dialed in, and we'll really figure out where we're looking to go. But definitely a lot of power on power throughout the slate as far as pitching is concerned. And then breaking down hitters, sorting my sheet by Sierra, skill or active ERA, worst to best, always a good way that I like to do it. Adam Oller is the worst on the slate. We only have a 4 innings pitch sample size with him, though, so, you know, kind of tread lightly on the data here. And as a matter of fact, I'm just going to go ahead and take him out of the spreadsheet to kind of take those results away from dictating the rest of the slate that we're looking at, because, quite frankly, it's a really small sample size. So sometimes I'll just take those guys out of my sheet so that when we're comparing, you know, best against best or worst against worst, it's a little bit more clear on the slate what our true worst options are. So Kyle Wright taking on Miami. Just Miami's not exactly the most talented, and he's been a lot better this year. He does give up a 5.14 slugging to lefties over the last couple of years, but I don't really think he's someone I'm looking to target, even though he has one of the worst Sierras on the slate. Looking at the Miami implied total for their team tonight, if we can find them here. Atlanta, they only have a 3.69 implied total, so I actually do think Kyle Wright could be an interesting option. He's someone that we didn't talk about because his underlying numbers the last couple of years hasn't been good, but Miami's a really good matchup. He struck out in 6 and 9 the first 2 times out, and he's given up 0 and 2 on runs. So I think actually he's someone that we could really be taking a look to on this slate today. Glad that I brought that up. Brad Keller taking on Seattle, a guy that just really does a good job of keeping the ball on the ground, even though he has a bad Sierra. He gives up a lot of contact, so I don't really like targeting Brad Keller. We have Antonio Senzatella taking on the Detroit Tigers. The same thing can be said for him. Does a really good job of keeping the ball on the ground, so I'm not too intrigued to stack against him. Chris Flexen taking on the Kansas City Royals is the first guy that we can talk about that gives up a lot of hard contact. It does give up some fly balls, a 4.43 slugging given up to righties, a 3.84 slugging given up to lefties for Chris Flexen taking on this Kansas City Royals team. So maybe they're a lineup that we're looking to target tonight. Only a 3.56 implied total. Maybe we get them low owned. The problem is they're in Seattle. It's really not a good hitting environment. So once again, we have a situation where there's just something where, you know, something's counteractive to us wanting to go all in on a spot. Seems to be the talk of the slate so far. But if you want to get the low owned Royals, you know, Whit Merrifield, Benintendi, Salvador Perez, Carlos Santana, Hunter Dozier, Bobby Witt, Mondesi, Michael Taylor. Maybe they're a low owned option you can go to against Chris Flexen tonight. And they have a decent game. I would really prefer to target them in a better ballpark. The Orioles, we talked about maybe, you know, targeting Reed Detmers, but he's been terrible. Ground ball, fly ball stuff's bad hard contact stuff. He gives up a 5.63 slugging to righties, a 4.52 slugging to lefties. He's a left-handed hurler himself, so we really prefer to target him with right-handed power. And believe it or not, the Orioles do have some of that. I mean, Santander, Ryan Mountcastle, Trey Mancini, Austin Hayes through the heart of this order. The 3, 4, and 5 guys can really slug lefties. Robinson Chirinos in the catcher spot can slug lefties. Ramon Urias, Kelvin Gutierrez, Jorge Mateo rounding things out. Maybe they're a good low and stacked. I mean, Reed Detmer's numbers, you can see, they're really, really bad against right-handed power. So I wouldn't mind going to the power Orioles. David Peterson does a good job of keeping the ball on the ground. Good ground ball, fly ball stuff, but he does give up his fair share of slugging to righties. Once again, though, just doesn't give up a lot of fly balls, man. And Diamondbacks don't exactly have the best lineup, but it's in Arizona. That's probably the best hitting environment we've talked about so far, in a spot that we have somewhat of interest in. So I wouldn't rule out the Diamondback stack here, especially down the left field line. It does play friendlier to those right-handed hitters down the left field line in Chase Field, so that's never going to hurt our feelings, of course. So if you want to go to some guys like a Ketel Marte, Christian Walker, Carson Kelly, but they have a lot of lefties in the lineup too, man. It's just an ugly lineup. So, I mean, I don't really want to be targeting them too much. Michael Wacha taking on the Rays. He gives up a 5.30 slugging to righties. He's reverse splitsy, so he's actually a lot worse against righties than he is against lefties, but he does do a good job keeping the ball on the ground against those righties. But the Rays just have a really talented lineup. Like, this is probably the first spot I would say just I'm willing to bet on the talent of the Rays to beat Michael Wacha's stuff, even though they're in Tampa, which isn't the best hitting environment. Brandon Lau, Wander Franco, Randy Rosarino, G-Man Choi, Josh Lowe, Kevin Kiermaier, Mike Zunino, Taylor Walls, Brett Phillips. A lot of power, a lot of speed throughout the lineup, so like I feel good stacking them up against Michael Wacha, unlike any of the other options we talk about. Nick Martinez taking on the LA Dodgers. We're only dealing with a 10 innings pitch sample size out of him, but he's been bad, a 43.3% hard contact rate with a 6.84 slugging up to righties and a 6.32 slugging up to lefties, and he has to take on an LA Dodgers team that's arguably the best lineup in baseball tonight. They're in San Diego. I think they could obviously be a great stack to be looking to tonight. Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Trey Turner, Max Muncy, Justin Turner, Will Smith, Cody Bellinger, Chris Taylor, Gavin Lux. Just a loaded lineup, man. They're going to be a viable stack every night, and I do think they look pretty good here. I mean, especially compared to some of these other spots we've been talking about. We have Kluber taking on Boston. He has struggled more so against the right-handed power than the lefties over the last couple of years, so targeting him with the righties is the way that I would prefer. So if you want to go to the Red Sox right-handed bats, and Hernandez, Bogarts, Trevor Story, Dahlbeck. Obviously, you can round out your stacks with talented bats like Verdugo and Devers. But the righties is mainly where you're looking to go. And then, I mean, Zimmerman, we talked about him. He gives up a lot of hard contact to righties, so the Angels' righties would be somewhere you're looking to go. Lefties, he's a lot better. Ground ball, fly ball stuff's good. So, the righties for the Angels with a 4.88 implied total. Mike Trout, Rendon, Taylor Ward, Jack Mayfield, Max Stassi. Actually, kind of a nice little power stack there that does hit left-handed pitching very well. Joe Adell, even though there's a lot of strikeouts there, I think you could play Zimmerman in the spot, and I think you could load up on the Angels' bats as well. They do look pretty good. Eli Morgan taking on the New York Yankees. They look like one of the top stacks on the slate. They've been really struggling, but this guy gives up a ton of fly balls, a 37.6% hard contact rate with a 477 slugging given up to righties and a 517 slugging given up to lefties. Really bad against both sides of the plate, but especially against those left-handed bats. So maybe this is a spot where we finally see Joey Gallo take one out of the yard, Josh Donaldson, Stanton, Rizzo, Judge. There's so much talent and power in the middle of that order that just really hasn't been performing. It's in Yankee Stadium. Great home run hitter ballpark, and there's also 11-mile-an-hour winds blowing out in Yankee Stadium tonight. So, like, I mean, what is there not to like about this spot? I know they've been struggling, but 4.95 implied total, a lot of power. A guy that really doesn't have the highest of K rates, a 24.8% K rate to righties, but especially against the lefties, his K rate dips all the way down to a 16.8% K rate, and he gives up a 517 slugging, and it's in Yankee Stadium with that short right field porch. So, I mean, yes, please, would be my analysis there. And then once we get down past him, I mean, we're kind of just hunting for splits, guys. Sammy Long is a left-handed hurler that you can target with right-handed power in Washington with a 480 slugging given up to those righties. So I do think the Washington power righty bats could be intriguing here. Nelson Cruz, obviously, Josh Bell, Cesar Hernandez. I mean, it's really just Nelson Cruz as a one-off that I feel most confident in, unfortunately, because it's just not good. Ross Stripling's a reverse splits guy. Targeting the Houston righties would be where I'm looking to target him. We have Tariq Skubal, who has been giving up a lot of home runs throughout his early years pitching in the majors, so I always like targeting him with the right-handed power. In Detroit, Connor Joe, Chris Bryant, CJ Cron, Elias Diaz, Brendan Rodgers, Randall Grichuk could be some bats you're looking to maybe tonight. Try to capitalize on those splits. And then from there, man, I mean, Bailey Ober taking on the Chicago White Sox. I think the White Sox could be a really good stack. Really bad ground ball, fly ball stuff, a lot of hard contact, a 471 slugging given up to righties, a 483 slugging given up to lefties. The White Sox are just a really talented lineup up and down. They do have 18-mile-an-hour winds blowing in, though, like I said. That's just really unfortunate. That kind of talks me off them a little bit, but just wanted to mention them at least. And, yeah, that's really where we're looking to go to, man. I mean, everyone down here isn't exactly the best to be targeting. Maybe you target Freddie Peralta because he's been struggling early on, and the same thing, like I said, maybe getting him low-owned. Maybe people don't want to target him, and you get the Phillies low-owned, and they rake off against Peralta again. He just shows that he's not as good as we once thought. Who knows? I mean, could be a viable strategy. So that is my overall breakdown of this huge slate, guys. Before I let you guys go, of course, as always, I got to give you my home run call of the day. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. Check out Prize Picks. Use that promo code KJK DFS to receive an instant match deposit up to $100. If you want to check out the premium content packages, patreon.com/KJK_DFS. I do offer that linked below in the description as well. And without further ado, got to give you my home run call of the day. Let's get into it. And my home run call of the day today is going to be Anthony Rizzo taking on Eli Morgan in Yankee Stadium tonight. We talked about his hard contact issues against lefties. Really dreadful stats here with a 517 slugging, giving up a 56.2% fly ball rate, 350 WOBA, and only a 16.8% K rate. Not to mention the wind blowing out in Yankee Stadium tonight to right center. 11-mile-an-hour winds blowing out to right center. And then when you look at what Eli Morgan relies on, really reliant on the fastball changeup combination. Not much else going on against those left-handed hitters. I think this is a spot that Anthony Rizzo can jump on a fastball and take him deep tonight with a 90 to 91 mile-an-hour fastball. Rizzo features a 273 ISO with a 487 WOBA, 40% hard contact rate. Factor in the short porch and right, the wind blowing out to right. Everything lining up for Rizzo here at the top of this Yankees lineup tonight. Get him in your lineups because he is my home run call of the day. So there we go, guys. Anthony Rizzo, get him in your lineups. And that is all from me in this one. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. Wishing you guys all the best of luck tonight, and we will see you in the next one.